probably one of the most underrated franchises out there. The games are always good, but they just never get the recognition they deserve. Although that's pretty easy to say since there's only 2 games in the main series and the rest are spin-offs.
The Klonoa series is one of my favorites. The first one that I ever played was The Empire of Dreams on GBA, followed by the very rare Klonoa 2 Lunate's Veil. And Klonoa Door to Phantomile, which is the first game in the series, is even more rare. Door to Phantomile was remade for the Wii under the title of just Klonoa, as they left the subtitle out for the American and European releases, and because I don't have a Wii, I know nothing about the remake. The original Klonoa features 2D sprites running along a 2D plane in a 3D environment.
I really do like this 2.5D style, although I'm glad that it's not done that often so it doesn't oversaturate the market. Unlike how there's so many zombie games out there. Come on, there's more zombie games out there than there would be zombies in a zombie apocalypse.
A little interesting fact. Yuji Naka, who taught himself how to program games, originally applied for a programming job at Namco as he was a fan of them, but because he didn't go to college at all, Namco turned him down. But he did get a job at Sega as a programming assistant, and we all know what happened from there. I bring this up because if we look at Klonoa, he looks like he would fit perfectly in a Sonic game with no alteration needed to his art style. I'm not saying that Klonoa is a Sonic clone. In fact, the inspiration for Klonoa came from Super Mario Bros. No one really knows what Klonoa actually is. Namco's comment on it is that he's a fantasy character, but they mostly consider him a cat with long ears.
Although I really don't think he looks like a cat, more like a dog with rabbit ears, but whatever, he's whatever animal you see him as.
The sprites look as though they were modeled in 3D and then made into 2D because of the level of detail, but yet they are animated like sprites instead of 3D models. This is evident when you turn left to right, as Klonoa will just face that direction with no transition animations. The music is really good too. I enjoyed it and it fits the levels and the overall fantasy theme. The characters speak their own gibberish language that's based on Japanese, which makes sense, as Klonoa is known as a dream traveler and in dreams words can come out as gibberish.
Zexant Burup Zo Kazumo Dis Suftitro.
The controls are simple, only needing 2 buttons and the directional pad. Square will shoot your wind bullet, Klonoa's primary attack, and X will jump. However, hitting X in midair will allow Klonoa to flap his ears for a short time and allow to gain a little bit more distance. It'll also allow you to make more precise jumps. Now if you fire the wind bullet at an enemy, you'll catch and hold them above your head. This allows you to throw them, but if you're holding an enemy, jump and then hit jump again, you'll jump off the enemy, sending them downwards as you go upwards, making this double jump another type of attack. You can also face the foreground or background and interact with objects there, like switches or other items, but only rarely will you need to do that.
And I can't stress this enough. You need to master the wind bullet. If you don't master the wind bullet, you're gonna have a bad time.
The game is easy overall, but at the same time, it can be challenging. First off, the wind bullet has almost no range, so you're going to need to get in close to hit your enemies with it. Secondly, Klonoa slides along the ground when you stop moving. This can be frustrating when you need to stop at an edge so you could get in close to your target to hit them with the wind bullet. If you're not careful, you will fall off. And lastly, if you take damage, you do not get that brief few seconds of invincibility. You can and will be drained of all your health very quickly. The only thing that balances this out is that you fly back a few feet after taking a hit. This can be challenging because you can get a huge enemy in the way and can't figure out a way to get past them and just decide to barrel through.
Which I highly advise against. Just solve the puzzle, otherwise you're just gonna pay for it in the end.
Some of your mainstream game critics have criticized the game for being too childish or saying that it's a kid's game in an almost insulting way. And you know, I get this a lot when I've criticized the story in Sonic games, especially in my Sonic Adventure 2 review. Saying it's a kid's game is not a defense against someone criticizing the story. The story in Klonoa is really good. Yeah, you can tell it's written for kids, but it does not talk down to them. It makes it a point to tell them that bad things can and will happen, and there's nothing you can do to change that. Yeah, even if it's a story for kids, it should be appealing for all audiences, because more than likely, an adult may be watching or playing it with their kid.
Think about it for a second. If you grew up watching Animaniacs, there were jokes that sailed over your head as a kid, but as an adult, you get it. That's how you know a story is written well.
But when I say Klonoa's story doesn't talk down to kids, it really doesn't. The perfect example is when Klonoa's grandfather is murdered. He's not kidnapped, he's not injured and in the hospital. No, he is murdered and tells Klonoa with his last dying breath that it's his destiny to save the world. And in the Klonoa games that I've played, this style of writing for a story is a staple, where it's lighthearted but it's not afraid to go down those darker paths to evoke emotions. It's like older Disney movies, and I mean really older Disney movies, like Bambi, Dumbo, and The Fox and the Hound. The game is pretty short. There's 5 levels that are broken up into 2 stages with a boss at the end of the second one. The stages do get longer as the game goes on though, and it's pretty generous with extra lives. But I do have this nagging feeling that the game hasn't aged all that well. More than likely it's because I played Klonoa 2 before this. And Klonoa 2 is probably the best game in the series.
I do think that Namco needs to pay more attention to this series, though, and put more money into marketing it, so this way it doesn't get the moniker of greatest games that you never played. It's a good intellectual property, and the games are fun, and it just needs to see more love.